This video is brought to you by my two books, Practical Music Theory for the Rock Guitarist and The Blues Guitar Bible. Want to learn about modes, harmony, scales, chord substitution and keys? Or maybe you're interested in supercharging your blues guitar rhythm and lead chops. Whatever you're interested in, I guarantee you will be hitting the fast lane to progress with either of these works. Both feature video demonstrations and tutorials, loads of tabs and jam tracks to play along with, and I promise you, everything is explained in crystal clear plain English. Check out the links in the description for more details. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Now, being Tuesday, usually I'll be doing some sort of top 5 video, or if I simply can't narrow the contenders down to a list of the top 5 in whatever category I'm talking about, occasionally I'll make it a top 10 video. But we're not doing that today. It's going to be a top 12, and I'll explain why. Recently, earlier on today, in fact, I had a Zoom chat with Jonny from the Budget Guitar Show, Steve Cassidy and The Lamb. And in case you're not familiar with these chaps' channels, I'll put links down in the description so you can go and check them out. And the topic under discussion was... what's the most surprisingly good piece of equipment? A guitar, a pedal, an amp, whatever. The most surprisingly good piece of equipment you've ever owned. Something that really exceeded expectations. And all four of us chose one particular item to put in that category. And then we went on to the opposite end of the spectrum. The most disappointing piece of kit we've ever owned, the kind of buyer's remorse kind of thing. So we each chose one of those, and then we each chose the piece of equipment that, whilst we're not particularly emotionally invested in it, it's become woven so tightly into the fabric of what we do that we'd struggle to cope without it. So there's 4 of us. We each pick 3 things each, and well, this is how the conversation went. How about we kick things off? We'll go. I've got like the kind of the sort of multi-person view on here, and Jonny is in the top left. So we'll go clockwise from Jonny, starting, Jonny, with your most surprisingly good piece of gear that you've ever owned.
That's got to be what I have just down here, and it's the Sonic 8 Matribox 2. Multi-effect pedals for me have always been not the best thing. I tend to sort of, I like the distortions that they knock out, but once you start adding the other effects, it just gets to, what's the word? Too mushy, too clogged up. But the Matribox 2, I've got loads of stuff set in on that, on the California lead setting, which I generally tend to use. And I just think it's fantastic, and especially for the money. A couple of £100 gets you one of these, and there's so much you can do with it, and the settings, everything about it, you can tailor every little bit.
Do you use it as an interface then? Because I know I had the Matribox 1 and you could use that as an interface.
No, I don't. I just use it as the pedals, the settings. I have a Focusrite 6.6, I believe it is, which I use as an interface, and I have that going into that as a sort of input. So I have the guitar input going into the Sonic 8. Yep. I have the Sonic 8 going into the Focusrite, and that is obviously connected via USB to the laptop.
Okay. Do you use it live?
I have used it live. I used it live with a duo that I was in for a bit, and I found that using the drum machine and everything on it was just what I needed. This replaced a whole amp rig for me. Okay. Just had it plugged into the PA and all the settings there. It maybe to change the tempo of the drum machine, I just had to do in between songs, just a little turn here and there. But you can have it all set up on the screen, so you don't have to keep faffing around, clicking different things and all of this, you know. So I found it really easy to use. The only thing I've not been able to do on it is it has the expression pedal, but I've never been able to make that a wah-wah because it's supposed to connect to your computer and you can use a thing there, a program for it, but mine just won't connect. So I haven't been able to test that part of it. It works as a volume, but other than that, everything else on it, you know, is perfect. You can use it live, and I hope to be using it live end of this month with a gig that I've got coming up, because it's got some sounds that I need.
Yeah, it's surprising. I mean, I remember there was the piece of kit that I really was gassing for back in the late 80s, early 90s. I think it was the Boss. I always get these the wrong way around. The Boss BE5 or the Boss ME5. There was a programmable one and one that was just basically a bunch of Boss pedals glued together, and programmable. That's like having an effects rack. I can be Steve Lukather, you know. But yeah. So, anything you don't like about it, apart from the fact it doesn't talk to your computer?
There's probably too much, because there's a lot of different sort of preset modes where you can save your own presets to it, and that just boggles my mind. You know, I like the fact that you can alter all of the actual presets that are in it, but it would boggle my mind to try and set one completely myself, having like the California lead setting and then having another setting on the other foot switch and all of this. That to me is just too far. And also the other thing, and I have to say this, and I'm sorry Sonic Cake out there if you do watch this, but you should have some instructions with your pedals and you know, all of your gear. The instructions for everything that I've had from them have been absolutely terrible. They don't tell you how to work them at all. So you have to, like I've done with this, I've had to go absolutely simple and go in blind with it and just get something that I think sounds good to me. Okay. Without any way of actually knowing what to do with it, you know. So I think that's the one thing that I don't like about it, is the fact that there are no instructions. Even the online manual is the same as the one that you get in the box, and it's pretty confusing. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I don't like about it. But structurally and how it performs, I'm very, very happy with it.
Right, feel free to chip in, lads. By the way, this isn't an episode of Parkinson. I'm not the interviews chair. You know.
Well, I was going to say something because you reminded me of something. Because there's like quite a few of these on the market now. These sort of there's almost like two classes of multi-effects. So if you take like the Helix and the Quad Cortex and all of those, they're massively expensive. And what you're paying for in those, or what it feels like you're paying for, is that they're recouping the costs of their whiz-bang AI modeling nonsense. Because I remember, like you say, when in the days like you had the Boss, was it the GT6? I had a Pod, I had a Zoom. They were all like £100, £200. But the £1,000 effects unit is quite a sort of different. That sort of came along later. And I think what's happening now is you get these sort of Sonic Cake and stuff like that. They don't really care about recouping the cost of the software, because I guess maybe they're buying it from somewhere else. But it just seems that I've never been quite able to justify dropping 1,500 quid on a multi-effects pedal. And I remember my Pod for £99 did 80% of the work. It's exactly, that was the one. Yes, I've had that. I've had a Pod HD. I had a Flextone modeling amp, because it's just the other point I was sort of going to make. And now I use like Amplitude with, a million options and 1,000 plugins. Like Jonny says, what I end up doing on all of those I've ever done is picking one amp model and just switching some effects on and off. It always seems to just, you funnel it down to a particular sound, and then that's it. And the other 2,000 options can go swivel.
That's it. I mean, I have the Fender Mustang 4 amp down here, and that was when I originally bought that, it was to take it out and use it live, because it was a modeling amp and I could get some good sounds with it. And now I've figured out how to use it. I don't actually use it live. It sits here and just gathers dust, because I use a Fender Supersonic live and just crank the gain on that. So I spent the time to really work on the amp, and I don't use it. I don't even plug it in here. I use the Sonic Cake here for everything. So,
right. Well, I think we'll move on. I believe going round the screen. It's my turn next. Most surprisingly good piece of kit. That was gear and kit, by the way. The most surprisingly good piece of kit that I think I've ever had. I can reach for it now and show you.
Uh-oh.
Jet JT350. $299. I think they're a bit cheaper than that now. And it's got a tortoiseshell scratch plate, so, straight away, it's
I'll give you for that.
It's off to a good start. As you may know, because I might have mentioned it once or twice, I've had stainless steel frets put into it by the wonderful chaps at Agrajag. CTS pots, orange drop capacitor. Brilliant little pickup. Brilliant. Artec Alnico 5 Hot Rails knockoff. 25 quid on Amazon. Brilliant pickup. Fantastic. To crank the volume up, you've got a Les Paul. You've got that kind of ballsy bridge humbucker sound. Back it off, and you can do the country twang thing with it. It really does kind of give you that sort of Telecaster thing. Neck pickup, kind of a really kind of low output humbucker. This is just the stock pickup that came with the guitar, and again, crank the volume up, and you've sort of got that classic neck humbucker, Parisian walkways sort of tone. But back it off, and you can still do what I think is the textbook. I'm not plugged in at the moment, so I can't really demonstrate this. You can still do what I think is the textbook Telecaster neck pickup solo. That one I won't play anymore because we don't want to get a copyright hit. And in the middle, it's out of phase. So in the middle, you've got all your Peter Green kind of tones and everything.
Was that on purpose or was that accidental? Because my Telecaster, I put a P90 in the neck. The middle position is out of phase. Not my intention, but I like it.
No, it was accidental when I picked the guitar, because James at Agrajag, he fitted the pickup when he did the frets, and I went to pick the guitar up and plugged in to the whatever amp it was that was in the workshop, and went to the middle position. Oh, I said, that's out of phase. He says, oh, just give us a second. What? I said, no, we're having that, we're leaving that, thank you very much. But when this was the second jet guitar I tried. I think I had the JS300. And even that one, which is like 150 quid, Strat copy, just immediately the feel of the neck was, oh, this is rather good. It was similar to when I first got my first Sire guitar, where it just, hang on, this feels like really expensive. The first guitar I ever really kind of remember thinking, actually, yeah, you can feel where the money's been spent, was a student of mine had a Carvin GT6 California, I think it was. It was when they were still called Carvin. They hadn't rebranded themselves as Kiesel by then, and you picked it up, And if you just kind of half shut your eyes, it looked like a PRS Custom 24, but with block inlays rather than birds. And you picked it up and you thought, oh, no, this is nice. And this is, you know, I've had custom shop Strats and USA core PRSs before, but this was the first time I'd played a guitar that made me think, actually, yeah, you can feel where the money's been spent. And then when I got a Sire guitar, that had a similar feel, but the money hadn't been spent because it was a Sire, you know. And then the same thing with Jet guitars. You know, I'm a massive fan of them. And that, as you know, the guitar that we no longer mention, my ex-signature guitar, you know, I don't have a signature guitar anymore, but if I did, it would look a lot like this. The only thing I would change would I'd have the truss rod adjusted down here with a spoke wheel adjusted. That's the only thing I would change. Everything else, this is just, well, it's sort of just become my number one guitar. There's nothing it won't do. So there you go. That's my best / most surprisingly good piece of gear that I own.
You guys are really selling me on the Jets. I might have to get one. I know Steve likes them.
Yep.
Yeah, the Jets are really good.
So,
John, have you considered the 4-way switch for your Jet so that you can have the middle position as well as the outer phase? Are you not missing it?
No, because when I want that sound, I've got Fazley Telecaster over there, and I've got the Nashville Telecaster, which has got that sort of regular middle sound in there. Yeah. So when I want that sound, I'll just I'll just pick that guitar up and do that, you know.
See, that's the smart way of doing it. I'm guilty of just wanting every single guitar to all do the same thing. Every guitar does everything.
Right, so Mr. Lamb, I believe it is your turn.
Me next. Mine is also a guitar that I have on hand. It's not one that I only bought this a couple of weeks ago, and I just thought it's Harley Benton. What are these called? SC 500, I think.
Oh yeah.
But it's basically a rip off of the Gibson Custom, isn't it? That's what they're going for with the black and the gold. This was 140 quid or 149, I think, something like that. And I bought something else at the same time, so I didn't even have to pay shipping. And that was the only reason I bought it, because I gave away my gold top one. So I had no sort of single cut Les Paul rip-off guitars. So I just sort of sat on the site for a while, and then this one came up, and I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And it's absolutely fantastic. It's amazing. There are a couple of flaws, but they're both cosmetic. One, I don't know if I can show you.
Is it the strap?
What's that?
Is it the strap?
What's wrong with the strap? Nothing wrong with that strap. There's a little break in the binding somewhere, and then they just obviously just lack it over. They sort of sod it. And to be honest, I can't remember where it was now. But that's quite inconsequential. The other one, I don't know if you can see, but the neck pickup sits at a sort of a weird. Yeah. I don't know if you can see that, but it's sinking away into the surround. And if I raise this pickup up, only this side comes up, so it just gets more and more wonky. But apart from that, I mean, I can probably plug in just for a little, give you a Tony thing. But the reason I wanted a guitar like this is, obviously, you probably know I'm quite into Mark Knopfler and all of that, so you've got to have one for your brothers in arms. Yeah. It does all the nice. It'll do it clean. So
I do like the sound of a clean humbucker guitar. It's just that sort of smoky sound. I can't really describe it any other way. Just, you know, especially.
Yeah, they're definitely. I mean, it's obviously it's fatter, but it's a lot more. I wouldn't say they're more dynamic as such, because they're very quite compressed. But what happens on a Strat, or I do kind of favour single coil guitars, is that once the attack is gone, what you're generally left with is sort of high end and mid range. With the Les Paul holds its bass for much longer. You just. It's like a more even sort of tone, I guess, as it sustains, which is quite a nice.
Is that one of the Harley Benton are putting like stainless steel frets into everything these days, aren't they? Does that have the stainless frets?
No, I don't think it does. I think it's basswood because it's not crazy heavy. It weighs about the same as my Telecaster. But who
think it's one of the
toss what it's made of.
Yeah,
it might be. I can't remember if it was a B stock or if it was just. I think might have been a B stock one, but I just like the look of it because they've got the look down spot on. In terms of just the black and the gold. I mean, the headstock, the tuners are sort of knockoff Grovers. Yeah. They've got that same sort of look. So, like at a glance, you'd go, "Oh, that looks expensive," and then when you get a bit closer, but. The one thing about it is it plays amazing. I've had Les Pauls and a few others. I had one of the tribute models, which you quite fancy, don't you? I had one of the first run ones, and that was a horrible guitar. In fact, if it was still here, it might even come up as one of one of the worst bits of gear. But the reason for that was the pickups that had P90s in it, and they were so microphonic you couldn't amplify it. Apart from that, it was great. It played well. But this plays just as well, if not better. So I picked this up all the time since I've had it. That's always a good test, I think, because I've got a selection of various instruments from tat to quite nice. And when you buy one, if you sit down and you go, I'm going to play my new guitar, the longer you're doing that, I think the better the purchase was. I got no regrets. It's hard to have buyer's remorse for £149 when you're getting what is essentially, I mean, it sounds like it and it plays like it, you know what I mean? It just doesn't have the name on the headstock. So that would be my,
This is my Epiphone 54 reissue. And this, I paid about 400 quid for it. It's now worth, I think I've seen one for sale for about £2,000. And, that Harley Benton there, although this has got P90s in, it does the same job as this.
Yeah. And I mean, they even went to the fuss of doing it's like the triple, I don't know if you see that, but it is the proper triple ply. Binding and everything, so they really, I mean, if they're going to skimp, you could skimp there and no one would blame you, but they didn't. It was really, I love this thing. Maybe speed knobs were a little bit, but then the black on the black works.
Yep.
So, in terms of functionality, I can't fault it, which basically means it's perfect, doesn't it? I mean, like I say, it's a couple of, I will have to take that pickup out. Another thing that makes me think this is B stock, or it wasn't new. That pickup that is wonky didn't have any plastic on it when it came. But the other thing is these strings. I eat through strings. Like I've got that body chemistry that will just rot a set of strings. I used to play in a sort of acoustic Cayley joke band / Irish folk, Scottish folk, all of that stuff. And I used to play like Martins and Martin strings, but I'd have to change the strings between sets because my hands would be white, like I've sort of sucked the phosphorus out of the strings, and the strings would be completely dead. So that's how long they'd last. They'd last about an hour. I haven't changed these, and I've had this for a couple of weeks, so maybe 4 weeks. So I think these might be coated strings, which I don't think is what they come with. I don't think so. I might be wrong. But because I have seen like the Dario, was it Triple XL or whatever, those coated ones on some of the high-end Harley Bentons, but I don't think they'd put them on this. So I think someone's had this, put the strings on it, and then maybe complained about that wonky pickup and sent it back, and that's why I've got a good deal. I don't mind the wonky pickup at all, but I'll get in there and fix it one day. Yeah.
Just a bit of foam underneath, that's all it.
That's all it needs. Yeah. There's just a bit of support, really. But it still sounds good. It doesn't make much difference. But that's my choice. And the strap didn't come with it, by the way. That was entirely my own doing.
Yes.
I thought, what strap will pee Steve off the most? And I put that one on it.
Yes, Steve Cassidy, the Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen of the.
Well, I know the Scottish are naturally averse to rainbows because they hate anything that's made of colour.
In fact, Steve, you should start a new section for your channel called Changing Straps.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, there's other names I could say. No, I better not. I just wondered, Lammy, because like you say, you've got to go over the 149, haven't you, to get the free shipping? So I thought maybe that's what the strap was there. Just.
Right. No, I actually bought. I tell you what, I bought for a friend of mine who's just started learning. He bought one of the Brian May Harley Benton knockoffs, the BM75, which is also really good. Needs a bit of a setup on that one, but that was good. And one of those little Nux mini plugs. I don't know, but that's what I bought for him for about £50 because he had no amp or anything. He's like, "What am I going to play it through?" And it wasn't like the super top end one; it was the mid-rangey one. So I think I paid about 55 quid for it. That's a great little thing that you can just plug in. And you've got an app on your phone with Bluetooth that, again, can do all the settings. And you can play audio from your phone to it. So you can play along to stuff. It's got a drum machine and it's got, basically, it hasn't got 1,000 different effects, but it's got maybe 30 that you would actually use. So that was actually a cool bit of gear.
I've got one of those down here somewhere in a little pouch. But yeah, they're fantastic, those are.
Yeah.
They really are.
So, I believe it's Mr. Cassidy's turn.
Right, so, big surprise. I didn't actually think of what I was going to do, but as soon as you brought out the Jet, John, I just thought, yeah, it's going to have to be the Jet, isn't it, for the most surprising piece of gear. But seeing as we've done Jet, I'll just put in the same category the Fazley Finneker when they were a thing. So both of them, because I got both of them around about the same time, as soon as you got the neck in the hands, like, whoa. Okay, because I think I'd seen some reviews on them, people saying they're good for the money and that kind of thing. You just expect, okay, it's going to be another sort of square or a, yeah, there you go, Johnny, that's the one. That's the Fazley Finneker. As soon as you get that neck in your hand, it's just, right, okay, so they could do Fender.
When they discontinued them, they were banging them out for like 50 or 60, weren't they?
Yeah, that's it.
See, I think, and backs have been really nice to me, but I think that was a mistake because to my perception and probably most of the market, they went from having a guitar, I mean, yeah, you could get them for 60 quid, but even at like £150, the Finneker was a killer guitar, it knocked the pants off any Squire and all the rest of it. And then they discontinued them and replaced them with a range that sits at the £300 mark, which is like a different ball game altogether. And every time I just think, we'll bring back the Finneker. Can we have the Finneker for like £200 again? Because I don't see the value in these. They've got nice finishes on the top and they've got the nice scorch one and everything else like that. But underneath the guitar that plays the Finneker was perfect, really. I don't know. I think they might have. I don't know. It feels like a mistake to me that they got rid of that because.
Well, of course, that was the deal with Jet, wasn't it? That they had, and I think they were slightly undercutting Jet on the prices. And from what I got told was that Jet suddenly turned around and said, "Right, no more." And that was it. They discontinued them, and they had to get rid of the remaining stock pretty quick. So that's what they did.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what it was pretty close to that. Was the it was round about the sort of lockdown COVID time or whatever time it was around about them, and demand's high for new guitars, and Jet were saying that they couldn't keep up with their own sort of orders getting out, so they had to say, sorry, Fazley backs, we're going to have to just concentrate on doing our own stuff. So Fazley were kind of forced to come up with something else.
So anything that, I mean, I asked Jonny about this earlier, with his favourite piece of kit, the Sonic Cake. Is there anything about the Finneker that you dislike?
Well, I mean, they're great mod platforms is what I would say. If you're a beginner, then it's good. But what I've been encountering recently, well, if I go back to Jet again, because it's kind of like the same thing, Jet seem to have changed the supplier of their saddles, and there's a little bit of an issue with them, where instead of having like a channel or a string guide through the center of the saddle, it's actually got a hump. So it's like when they've been casting them or something, the metal. I don't know. I'm just making things up now, but they've got a hump. So instead of it going through the center of the saddle, it sits to either side beside the screw. So like on, say for example, on your fourth and third strings, you could have the D string to the right and the G string to the left. So you've got like this sort of bigger gap of string spacing. The old saddles used to be stamped with MVB, might be a Wilkinson thing, I'm not sure. But yeah, they were fine. But speaking of changing suppliers, on the first earlier runs of Jets that I had and Fazleys, the tuners were pretty stinking. They were quite grindy and stiff to turn. Whereas I got a Jet GS300 very recently there, and that doesn't have the issue. So I'm guessing there've maybe been some changes in the hardware. So the tuners are better now, but the saddles are maybe not so great. So with any of that, you'll probably want to look at maybe upgrading some parts. That's the only downside.
The string tree. The string tree. That evil string tree. But I'm entirely with you on that, because on my Telecaster, it's one of these roasted neck ones. And I don't know what happened. It was quite early on. I got it. It was on a live stream. The string tree actually popped out the front of the headstock and was gone. So I replaced it with like a Dalwin one, like a nylon sort of self-lubricating white one. And that cost me like a couple of quid. It was nothing, And I know like the roller ones and things like that. I'm with it. Why do they keep using this bit of bent metal for the sake of what has got to be 50p? It is. Yeah, sometimes you look at guitars and you think, why didn't you think about that bit? That was a silly sort of things just to overlook. It just makes you think, oh, you really, what else have we overlooked?
On my bullfighter, the bullfighter guitar I got from Amazon that is strangely similar to the £400 Fazley, the burnt thing that they did. The string trees on that were those they call butterfly string trees, something like that, and they were terrible. So I just got a couple of gold roller ones from Amazon for about £1.50, put those on, and the tuning stability went up so much, for the sake of £1.50.
While we're on the subject of spoiling the ship for a ha'porth of tar, I've just got a guitar in here, which I'm not going to give it any spoilers, but it is, shall we say, a large UK music retailer's own in-house brand. And its initials might be S and K. Solo King. And it's a lovely guitar. But you turn the volume control down and it just muddies up. It just, it's like a capacitor and a resistor. Even if I was to go to my local, does Tandy still exist? It did. But if I was to go to my local equivalent of Tandy and buy those components at retail, it would probably cost me about 50 pence. Just put it in, and that it makes the volume control usable. Anyway, I won't rant on that. It's I think it's Jonny's turn next, and we're going to switch over now to the most, either the worst or most disappointing piece of gear that you've ever owned.
That has to be a guitar, and sorry, Fazley, Bax Music, but after years of owning it and playing it, it has to be that. What's it called? The Exotic Wood Telecaster. Now that is up in one of these boxes that I have above me, because I have loads of guitars in here. Now, I loved the look of it, and when I first ordered it, or when I first ordered one, it looked like the packaging had been used for football practice by UPS, and the back of the guitar looked like somebody taken a steel toe cap boot to it and kicked it. So I got that sent back. They didn't want it back. They refunded me. I kept it, but they started sending me guitars to review. Anyway, I eventually sold that one, and one of my subscribers asked me if there was one guitar I could have kept, which one would it have been? And I said, that one, because I loved how it looked. So they very kindly bought me one, and I got it here and everything was fine with it. The action was a bit high. But then I decided to take it out and actually use it at a rehearsal. And the pickups in it are terrible. They really are terrible. It's very, very tinny. There's not very much bottom end. And the feeling of it is like it's a toy guitar. Yeah. You know, it doesn't feel that fantastic in your hands. Now, yeah, I know it's only... what was it at the time, 60, 70 pounds, you know? So it would need totally upgrading to get it, you know, to be a decent guitar. But yeah, after years of playing it, it's not that brilliant. And I don't think I could recommend them anymore to a guitarist starting out. I would have to go with more... like we said, something like the Finneker. But yeah, I've started to see the error of my ways with that one. So it's up there. It doesn't get used. And I really think that is a terrible piece of kit now.
So I think you've already answered this, Jonny, but I'll like we were talking about when we were going for our favourite pieces of gear, what is it that you don't like about it? I think you've already answered this. What you do like about it is the way it looks.
Yeah. It was one of those where, you know, I saw it when I first ordered one. I saw it online and I thought, that looks really good. That stands out. That's the kind of thing I want. The difference. I really like that. So I bought one and started playing it. Of course, I knew no better. For a £60, £70 guitar at the time, it was really good. Mm-hmm. But since I've had things like the Harley Bentons and you know, the Finnekers and stuff like that, and even my old Squire, which I put back together, I've really seen the error of the ways of the fact that, yeah, a £60 guitar, if you're going to buy it for a young kid who maybe is going to pick it up, noodle about with it, and then forget about it 6 months later, you haven't lost a lot of money. But as an instrument that you could go out and gig with, I don't think it is one of those.
Have you seen a series of videos featuring a guy called Scott Pawley?
No.
He is the guitar player in a band called Rumours of Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, yeah.
Who the lead singer in that is actually Jess Harwood, who's one of the backing singers with Classic Rock Show. By the way, if they ever come anywhere near you, go and see them. But yeah, he bought a second-hand, a used Harley Benton ST20.
Oh yeah, I did see that video actually. Yeah,
and he's playing stadiums with it. Mm-hmm. And all he's done is change the output socket for one of those. Is it Nutric silent ones? You know, got it professionally set up, takes it out, plays it in stadium gigs. Well,
yeah, I've heard of one other artist doing that as well, and I can't remember for the life of me who it was, but same thing.
Andy Partridge, XTC, he uses Harley Benton now, and it's one of the cheap ones.
Yep.
Even Mike Rutherford on the last Genesis tour was playing a Squire, Bullet Squire. I mean, you know, there's a man that has no problem affording any guitar he wants. You know, remember that. I agree with you as well. The pickup thing, you know, like I was saying about that tribute model Les Paul I had, everything about it was gorgeous except the pickups, and it makes the guitar unplayable. It just destroys it because if you can't turn it up because it's microphonic or something, what's the point of it? You know,
it's one thing paying a couple of £100 for a guitar and thinking, well, I can mod it. When you pay for, you know, a 4-figure sum for a Gibson, then.
It's the other thing, it's got Gibson on the headstock. Do you really want to change the pickups because you're just devaluing the thing now, you know? And yeah, it's...
Well, to counter what I was saying, like I had the Aria Telecaster, the Legend, and I got this back in the late 90s. And yeah, it was fine, it played, it was a cheap £60 thing. it was fine. It played. And then a couple of years ago, when Fender bought out their Joe Strummer road-worn Telecaster for like £1,800, and they were saying, oh, the pickups are Joe Strummer voiced, you know. So I did a video where I compared my £60 thing playing the same opening notes of London Calling, and mine, this £60 cheap thing, sounded exactly the same as their guitar in their video. No difference.
It's interesting when you get like really expensive artist guitars and signature guitars and signature pickups and signature pedals and things like that, because it's none of the top records that these people got famous for were made with anything other than stock instruments, or they might be slightly modified. But Eric Clapton played a Stratocaster, and whatever was in it that was the guitar, and then it goes to other things. And it's sort of cart before the horse. It's sort of the other way around in effect.
How can you get a Joe Strummer voiced set of pickups when he used a 66 Telecaster and that was what was in it?
Exactly, yeah. There were no one starts their career going, right, I need my own signature pickups, or I'm just not going to be able to get my sound.
Yeah, what is your sound? I don't know yet.
It kind of reminds me, I was having a conversation with my dad yesterday. He's a guitarist too. He's a bit of a jazzer. We're both big fans of Glaswegian jazz guitarist Jim Mullen. Don't know if anybody's familiar with him.
Oh, yes, yeah.
But he's a phenomenal player, and he's kind of known for getting this just amazing tone out of... it's an Aria Pro, is it an FA 71, I think is the model. And it's just like you say, Lamy, it's just a stock model, but he's been playing it for decades. And it's never been a cash grab. Like, you can't buy a Jim Mullen signature or anything like that. But if you want to get his guitar and his tone, just go on eBay, look for an FA 71. You can get one for about sort of, I don't know, £400 or £500 or something like that. And they're pretty great guitars. Well, he makes it sound great anyway.
Anyway, I think you might just have... boosted the buy it now price on Aria Pro 2. So I'm going to go now with my most disappointing buyer's remorse kind of piece of gear that just didn't live up to the admittedly quite high expectations I had for it. My two favourite guitar tones, if I had to be pushed, would be a nice kind of fruity neck single coil, because it's Gilmore and it's Hendrix and it's Stevie Ray Vaughan and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I know it's not a single coil, but the pickup in this guitar does a very good version of that when you back the volume off. Good sort of Texas blues sound. So I like that in a guitar, and I also like a vintage voiced bridge humbucker. I don't like guitars that look too flashy. I don't like the Liberace footballers' wives look. And then back in 2015, it's like somebody at PRS had a picture of me on the desk and said, let's build a guitar for that fat lad. And they came out with a PRS Vela, which is like a vintage voiced Starler humbucker at the bridge, and that sort of slightly de-almond kind of looking neck single coil. And I wanted one. I was on the bones of me backside financially at the time, and there was no way I could afford those sort of price tags. But life has been kind in the recent years, and I got to the point, I think in 2022, where I could afford one. So I pulled the trigger on it. Got it used on eBay, and I've been there's that time lag, isn't there? But when you've kind of paid for it and it's ordered and it's on its way to you, and you keep checking the tracking app to see, is it going to come today? And when it actually arrives. So I don't know about you, but in that sort of in that no man's land period, I'm always I'm looking for. I should do the Steve Cassidy kind of sound effect there, shouldn't I? I was looking for all the reviews on it and all the demonstrations on it, and I can't tell you how many times I watched the PRS guy, what's he called, Brian Ewald, doing his demo of it, and it sounded gorgeous. It was just a fantastic, everything that I wanted, and no dot inlays, no racing pigeons, didn't look too flashy, fantastic. And then it turned up and I plugged it in and I spent a good couple of weeks really, really, really wanting to fall in love with the sound that this guitar made. I just couldn't. It was just thin and scratchy, and the bridge humbucker it had no guts. You know, you'd kind of, I want a bit of sustain out of a humbucker and it just would die. And the neck pickup, you know, which I'm thinking, well, it's not a P90, but it's going to be somewhere close to a P90. No, it was like just the thinnest, kind of trebliest, lacking in bottom end, lacking in any kind of guts sound that was imaginable. I just did not like that guitar. I would have it on the stand there, and I'd look at it, and it was a gorgeous looking thing, you know, slightly offset, but not in an ugly Jazzmaster kind of way. And, you know, just thinking, yeah, that's gorgeous. And, you know, since I'd had a USA PRS many years before that, they've changed the logo so that the logo now on the USA ones is in gold, and it just looked such a gorgeous guitar. And it was just a crushing disappointment every time I picked it up and played it. And as I said, I had it about 2.5 weeks, and something happened in that couple of weeks where the resale value of them kind of, you know, just went up by a couple of £100. They were just kind of fetching a bit more money on eBay, so I thought, right, I'm cashing out of this, and got rid of it. It was then I replaced that with the other PRS, the S2 Standard 24, which was a lovely guitar, but sadly my hand injury meant that I couldn't get on with it anymore. But yeah, that would be my most disappointing piece of gear. That said, it did deliver me a little bit of a profit when I moved it on. So it's not. If we're going to go for what did I like about it, you know, that would be the thing I liked about it. So, any of you lads ever played a Vela? Any thoughts on them?
No. Is that the one, John, that you had that was kind of wine red with a black pickguard, looked a little bit like an SG, sort of cosmetically? Not that one, no.
Yeah, well, they both did. The S2 Standard 24 had that sort of look about it, and the Vela did as well.
Right, okay, that's where I'm confused. Carry on. All good.
No, I've said me piece about that.
It had an interesting bridge on the Vela, wasn't it? It was like a Telecaster bridge, but split 3 and 3, wasn't it? It was like the...
And it looked like a string through, but it didn't. It was actually a top loader, because it just the strings just kind of hooked into like a cavity underneath the bridge.
They did some lovely bursts on those, didn't they? I'm a sucker for a tobacco burst.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the disappointing one for me. So, Lammy, I believe it's your turn.
It's here. I've got it here. It's all the way over here because I never play the thing. It's this sort of Liberace footballer's wife. So this is an Ibanez RG970 QMZ 2014. You have to say 2014, I think, because I only made them for 2 years. And it's not the whole guitar. You can probably guess what's coming. Yeah. It's this. It's not quite a Floyd Rose. It's an Edge Pro 02, and it's such a pain in the backside to maintain, to restring, that this guitar just doesn't get a look in it. Every now and again, I feel like, oh, okay, if I spend the hour it's going to take to do it, then I'll be able to have whammy fun. When it's all set up, it stays perfectly in tune, and it's good for about a week. And then it just sort of somehow drifts out of tune, I guess the strings stretch or whatever. But what I really hate about it is that and I suppose this is maybe the case of all Floyd Roses, but to me it seems easier on this one. If you're familiar with Floyd Rose normally, you tighten them from the back, and there's a rod that sort of screws and pushes a block that then traps the string in there. Well, these ones have got these tiny little sort of strange shaped little metal hammer pieces that sit in the top, and there is no cavity coming back. The Allen screw is there, so it's all in this one little unit. So what you do is you take your strings off, and you give the guitar a good clean, and then you got to clean the back, and they all fall out. And now you've got to find the tiny little bit of black metal on your inevitably dirty deep shag carpet. You'll never find them all. They're like plectrums and cigarette lighters. They go to that extra dimension that we all get reunited with when we die. And the problem there is then that you have to go on eBay and find the one sort of old Ibanez wizard that's got a stock of them, and you have to order them and wait for them to arrive. So now it's taken you 2 weeks to restring the thing. The other thing is with the way this works is, so you chop your ball end off, so to speak, and you put the end of the string in there, and then you tighten up with this Allen key. And because all this is in the way, it's not like with a third rose you can get at the back, and you can kind of get a bit on it. But with this, it goes down in there at an angle. And what happens is the hammers wear out, and they won't hold the high E. So by the time you've ordered your spare parts and you've rebuilt the bridge and you get all the strings and you get to the high E, you tune it up to pitch and it will let go and it will just fly out of the block. And of course, you've already stretched that to the maximum, so now you've got to go find another E string. And the only solution is to go and buy another bit of black hammer, because what happens is they wear out almost every time. And it's the high E that goes, when I bought this, it didn't have a high E string on it. And the guy said, oh, yeah, it just snapped. He was lying. He knew. There was a reason this was a good deal. He knew what it was. At the moment, it's okay.
Was it a good deal?
Was it? I like it. It's pretty. I mean, you know, you've got the old flame maple there, and they do a lovely job of the burst and everything. And it's like a 5-piece neck with, you know, 2 maple bits in the middle. And that sort of, the craftsmanship on the woodwork is amazing. It goes right through the headstock with the sort of stripes there. And you've got a nice contour, sort of everything's soft around there and everything. This thing is... and yeah, it's okay. I had to put some pickups in it. Again, I got it wrong, and this has got one of the most out of phase sounds I've ever heard, which is actually very useful. I've used that quite a lot actually, because what I did, I put it in, it's an incredibly out of phase sound, and if it's quite good for adding that little bit of, you know, a little bit of secret sauce when you're producing the record and you're going to mix and you think, oh, I could just use a little bit of high-end tinkliness. You know, that through a bit of delay and a bit of flange in the background is sort of a nice thing to have in your palette. But God, I hate restringing it. It's the worst thing because I do it every time. I say, I'll give it a good clean. And I do that and it just goes, psh, you know, and that's it. And it's going to cost me money every time. I hate it. I just can't stand the thing. Who thought that was a good idea? What were you on?
I had a mate, about 15 years ago. He had one of those Steinberger. Is it Steinberg or Steinberger? I always forget. But you know the headless ones.
Yeah.
Headless ones. And do you remember when they had this thing called the trans trem? Where it
yes.
You could use the tremolo and you could kind of... and it would lock, so you could, as you move the tremolo arm down, the strings descended in pitch equally, and you could lock it off at a kind of drop tuning, right? And you know, he used to use it. He used to gig with it. The only way he could keep that guitar functional, because there was obviously all kinds of mechanical shenanigans with the bridge and everything, was his uncle owned a metal fabrication company, and he had to get his uncle to kind of make these spare parts because they just weren't available because it was a discontinued model, and you know, it was just he had to you know, use family connections to get those bits and pieces actually made out of lumps of metal. So he was lucky in that regard, but you know, it's a similar story to what you're telling there. What do you like about it then, Lammy?
I love the way, I mean, the actual guitar, the way it looks is great. It plays great. I like it when this is set up. I like the Floyd Rose floating because I quite like a lot of the Jeff Beck sort of style stuff. I don't play like that way often, but this will do it because it's that sort of thing where I, to be honest, even though I mentioned Jeff Beck, I prefer to float a 2-point American trem to do it than this. But you can do that thing where you're sort of supporting the bar here, and then the pinky goes up there, and you can play it to tune, to notes and things like that, because it's that light, and you can do the flick and the warble, and you can dive bomb it, and it'll come back and tune. I love all that. I just don't like the 3 weeks of agony it takes to get there. But yeah, I mean, apart from that, it's great. I had it ages, and I was thinking about, I would quite like to sell it. It's that guitar. If someone made me a reasonable offer for it, it would go. But I never put it up for sale. I don't know. Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment or something. But it's like if you've ever had an incredibly attractive girlfriend that's also very high maintenance, it's that. You look at it and you go, "Oh, I do like having it around." But every time I take it out for dinner, it's going to hurt. It's that sort of thing.
Okay, Mr. Cassidy, what is your most disappointing piece of gear?
Yeah, I couldn't really think of anything. So, just off the cuff. Probably not the worst, but the most recent one in memory. Since we said Fazley was probably the best, that'll also go for the worst as well. Jonny will know about this one. Their Firebird sort of, what do they call it? I can't remember the model name, but the Fazley Firebird style thing. And it's not disappointing because it wasn't a great guitar. It's disappointing because I really, really liked it. Here we go, Jonny.
You put a lot of effort into wanting to like that guitar. I remember the video.
Yeah, like it's so much about it, the kind of stuff that I wouldn't normally like on paper, particularly like the flatter radius and the Gibson scale length. What is it, 24.75 or something? Mm. But yeah, I thought I wouldn't like that, and it was set up terribly, but that's the one, Jonny. When I got it set up, it was I got it playing really, really good, but there's just so much fret buzz, high and low frets, and with the price of it, it's just never going to be worth getting sorted. So I just I returned it, but I really like the sound of the pickups on it as well. It was my first experience with these sort of, I don't know if they're mini humbuckers or if they're specific Firebird.
Yeah, they are.
Or if they're just Fazley's version of them. But yeah, those pickups, they were kind of microphonic and really harsh and jangly and trebly, but I absolutely loved them. So I wanted to keep it, but like I said, it wasn't worthwhile. So that's probably the biggest disappointment because I liked everything else about it, even the colour.
Well, you saw what happened with this one. When it came, the neck was actually bust, and you can still see sort of on there where my pal repaired it. And yeah, it was all down to the fact that the box that it came in wasn't shallow enough for the angle of the headstock. So in transit, it had obviously snapped and come right off. But yeah, they gave me this one, and I had it repaired. And now I think it's great. I really do. I like it. So... yeah, it's just one of those that I had to have really because Steve Jones had one. But yeah, I do agree that they could have spent a bit more on it, but I think they had a lot of problems with them, especially with the necks breaking. So I think that's why in the end they did stop making them. But I like it.
Yeah,
they went through a phase, didn't they? Fazley were doing it where they were made, like there's the Thunderbird, and they made a Beatle bass because I had one at one point. They had the violin bass, Paul McCartney bass. They also had for about £90 a clone, if you will, of an Ovation, with all the. What is it, like all the leaves and everything over, and I looked at that and I thought, how are you doing it for that price? And when I went to Bax and I spoke to them about it, they said we weren't. The quality just wasn't good enough. That's to make these sort of iconic guitars for £150-200. It was basically not doable because the attention they needed to get it right. You just couldn't do it in that amount of money. I think that's why they sort of stopped all of them. They had the one that they did have that some friend of mine bought was that they did an Ingve style Strat that actually had the scalloping and the brass nuts and everything like that. So they were really trying to copy the authenticity of them, but I think they just had whatever factory was doing that for them. They just had quality problems.
Yeah, the early ones that weren't very good. The early models that they had, I think Rick actually told me himself that they'd changed manufacturer, so they wouldn't be making any more of these things, you know. And of course, that then gave way to the Outlaw, the Sheriff, and then of course they moved on with the Finneker, and now they've got the Sand Shark and Sea Wave, which are, you know, higher end.
Yeah, with the Fazleys, I think probably the takeaway is with where they're at now, from the experience of me giving it as a example of the best and the worst. That's probably just say they're hit and miss. But I think where they're at from the experience with Rick as well, what he said, like I remember when Bax first got in touch through Jonny and recommendation, and they were asking what guitars I'd like to check out. They were trying to sort of get their new ones out, and I was like, you know what, I really fancy having a look at these Ingve style ones that you're talking about, Lammy, the scalloped ones, because never tried a scalloped guitar before and thought that'd be pretty cool to check out for the channel and whatnot. But when I asked for them, Rick said they're not too pleased with the quality of them as is. They're going to get discontinued, so would rather you didn't look at them, sort of thing, which is a shame. Yeah. And then with the Firebird as well, talking about that experience, Jonny, I'd seen your review on it and you had the headstock break and that kind of thing, and then I was reading the reviews on it, and there was a couple of people who had headstock breaks, and then there was some people who said the electronics didn't work. So like when I got it out of the box, I think I did an unboxing video. When I got out of the box, I was like, yes, headstock's on it, electrics are working, here we go, this is it. And then it was just like, didn't play too well. So yeah, sorry, I'm just going back to that being disappointing again.
Yeah, their Rickenbacker was the same. Their Rickenbacker clone was the same. But when I said I wanted to check one of those out, they sent me one. I got it out of the box. It looked fantastic, but the bridge pickup didn't work. And I thought, well, I'm not going to take this apart and start soldering bits and pieces and God knows what, because I've got to send it back, you know.
Just to sort of defend Fazley for a second, Bax, I'm thinking I don't think they've been making, well, I could be wrong, but I don't think they've been making the Fazleys as long as like Harley Benton's been doing it, or some of these other brands. Could be wrong. I think they're still kind of finding their way and trying out different factories and that kind of thing.
Well, the honourable thing with them is that when the product turns out to be a bit crap, they drop it.
Yeah,
you know, they don't carry on selling it, and it's I don't think, you know, I think we were having this conversation with Rob Chapman at the thing. I don't think really you can get a decent guitar for under £100. There's gonna be some, like I had the pink hot rod, I don't remember that was just the one pickup, just pink thing, and it was great because it was pink, and I gave that away. But the tuners on that, there was like sand in them or something. They were just so crunchy, and they broke quite. One of them bust sort of fairly soon after. And you know, there's always something like when they sent me. I went to quite a lot of their acoustic range, and anything that was like £150 plus was fine. Anything under like the £100 mark was, I wouldn't really give this to. But the problem there is that you think, well, that's for someone who's just first learning. If you have to learn on that, you give up, you know. It's that sort of thing, that bracket of trying to get me a guitar for under £100 it's almost you get what you pay for. You can't blame them for trying to hit that price point, but at the same time, you know. But it's interesting, the Beatle bass that I had, again, they were doing that thing, weren't they? They were trying to hit a market. So obviously they had the Rickenbacker for the Lennons, they had the Paul McCartney bass. That bass was, again, it was the only one they had. They didn't have any more, and they only let me have it because I was using it on the stream with a friend of mine. That's got, you know, it's a big channel, so they were happy to sort of accommodate me because we were playing Beatles songs, and it was the right thing, and that was a great bass. The problem there was, you know, it's the Hofner violin bass is what they're copying. The way the bridge is on that guitar, if you hit the bass hard or you try and play it with a pick in a modern style, the strings bounce off bridge because there's almost like an arch top, because it's a hollow base. They just sit over a little bit of wood, really. That's all it is. Just three. The way the bridge works is it's a straight piece of wood with 4 slots in it, and then they put a little shim of metal where that's how you intonate it, is which slot you put the shim of metal, and that's all that bridge was. So but obviously you said people complained, they said, oh, it's unplayable. It's like, well, sometimes you've got to adjust your playing style to an instrument.
Yep.
Those violin basses aren't designed to be hammered, but if you get too many complaints, I guess it's too much to deal with. But
that said, I've just got the C wave that I wanted in green, and I tell you what, that is a fantastic piece of kit for the money. It really is. Okay, they're £250 at the moment. They might go back up to 290, but I got this one as a B stock. But there's nothing wrong with it, and it sounds good. The pickups in it are good. The bridge, it's a Wilkinson bridge. Technically, I don't like those WOV10 bridges, but it functions and it holds its tune. And I've used it in rehearsals. I'm going to use it live. It is really good. So where they are now is actually, I think, really, really good.
Yeah.
Where they were, maybe at the time, some of them are good. Their Les Paul copies are good at Fazley. Do like those. I do like their SG copy. But as you were saying, Lammy, when you want to get something that's under £100, I would say more to the £98 mark.
Yeah, the more you can spend, the better, isn't it? Yeah.
The Outlaw Sheriff, great. That's up there. I still use that. That's brilliant, But err on the side of anything. To me, I would say anything £90 and over is going to be half decent.
Or just buy something that should cost 150, 160, but get it used or get a B stock. That would be.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, same order again. We'll start with Jonny. Maybe a piece of gear that you're not emotionally invested in, but you'd find it hard to do without. What would that be?
That is going to be a guitar, and that I'm not emotionally invested in. That is a tough one. I'm going to have to say this. This is my
Rockstar
Encore Satan 666 Strat thing, and this is one of the first guitars I ever had. It's not the actual one, but it is one of them. Now, the story behind this was I had one for years, didn't like it. It sounded awful, and I sold it. I think when they came out, they were about £66. My mum and dad scraped to get me one, and I sold it. It was awful. And then I saw one a couple of years ago for sale on eBay for £18, and somebody actually went and bought it and had it sent to me. It just reminds me of those times, of my mum and dad not having, the money, because they were both pensioners and, they couldn't afford, to spend out on a guitar. And I stupidly got rid of it and bought a Squire with it, with the money. But now I plug this in and I think it sounds great. And if I'm recording here at home and it's a particular rock song, I always pick this one up because it just fits, and I just love how it looks. And I've never seen another one,
Yep.
I've never seen these come up for sale. apart from this one when it came up. And yeah, I love everything about it, even though it is a bit of a pig. I had to redo the nut, the pickups, the electronics, the volume control. That crackles like nobody's business when you try to use it. But there's just something about it. It's heavy as hell. I think it is made out of plywood, but I love it. And it is one of the guitars that I could not get rid of, ever.
An essential piece of kit. So I'm going to go with something that I have absolutely no emotional investment in. It is just a tool of the trade, and I can't imagine being without it. You go back and look at some of my earlier videos, and I cringe at them now because I'm thinking, yeah, did you not think the tune up before you started kind of recording? And I promise you I had done, but your guitar is only as in tune as the quality of your tuner will permit, especially when it comes to like intonating your guitar. So the most essential piece of kit that I could not do without is this. It is a Peterson strobe tuner. Best 60 quid I've ever spent. You compare like just your regular kind of clip on like a Snark or something like that to this, and it's surprising how far out of tune you are when your other tuner is telling you, yep, that's fine. You're in the center of the dial and it's flashed up green and that's all tickety-boo. Check it with this. And I think that's where a lot of the tuning issues came from in some of my earlier videos, where, I always do the intonation whenever I restring, and I would check the intonation with the Snark or whatever it was, the Daddario little clip-on thing that I had for a while. Check the intonation, or that guitar tuner app, TUNA, that we've all used at one point or other. Checking with that. Yeah, this don't lie, and I couldn't do without it. So
Peterson is the industry standard now for tuning, isn't it? Just is. That, although I mean, was it Steve who did a video on tuners and things like that? I speaking about the old Con strobo tuners that they used to still see behind every big rock guitarist. You can't beat a strobe tuner. Yeah, that's cool. I should get one, really.
So, Lammy, your turn.
My turn. I can't demonstrate it, and again, talking about no emotional attachment. I don't care what one it is, but for me, there absolutely has to be a volume pedal in the chain. And for me, specifically a volume pedal before the amp, but after the pedals, because it gives you an element of tonal control that doesn't really come from anywhere else. The volume knob is too clumsy whilst you're playing whatever you're doing. It's hard work. On a lot of guitars, it's miles away, and you can't possibly play and swell. You can on the Strat, but to have it on the floor does so many things. It's your noise gate. In fact, it's better than a noise gate, because I find a noise gate is good, but you inevitably put the noise gate in the start so it doesn't cut off like reverb trails and things like that. Well, that means your noise gate is also not cutting off all the hiss that can come from your pedals if you don't use, Boss, I'm looking in your direction with some of the compressors and things. So a noise gate, I find, particularly if you're doing because I do like a lot of Mark Knopfler stuff, a noise gate can be a real problem there, because you're already quite low playing with your fingers in terms of level anyway. So your signal to noise ratio is quite high, and they tend to cut off, when you're still perhaps wheedling away a little bit of vibrato, they'll cut that off. So I find having a volume pedal, you're in control of the whole thing, so you can just bring your foot back and there's no noise. But it's also an overdrive pedal, because I like my choice of amps. If I know I generally do digital now, but I like amps like tweed amps that are really loud at 2 and are distorting at 4, on the volume dial, and you go up past 4 and they just get more distorted. Because if you stick a volume pedal before an overdriven amp, you've now got the option of clean at your foot. You know, you can sweep from nothing through to clean. You can step off the volume pedal and have a consistent clean tone, and then you can hit it, you know, to 100%, and that now you're in overdrive territory. So I think tonally and gain wise and all sorts of things, it sounds like the most boring pedal in the world, but I think if you use them in that way, hot tube amp that's overdriving after your pedals, you know, you can even do that thing where if you've got a distortion amongst your pedals, you can have a really distorted sound, but you can bring the volume of the distortion down, like in the mix and things like that. So I think in terms of versatility, and what I would always ask for would be a volume pedal before. So that's my my pick for. But I wouldn't really give a toss which one. They all do the same thing. It just needs to. It's just a potentiometer on a nice swivelly foot. You know, the Ernie Ball ones are nice, so I'll go with that. But you know, that's for me. Even when I do the stuff digitally, I have a MIDI expression pedal, and that's doing the RAW. Its default set is a volume pedal.
I've never used a volume pedal, but I think you might have just sold me on the idea. Watch this space. There might be a video in that.
do you want one, John? Brand new.
If you've got one, yeah.
Where is it?
Just...
There it is. Here you go. This is the brand new Sonic 8 Flip Vol. Which, if I can get the box open. Here we go.
Live unboxing, we've got it all. Oh, that looks great.
Yeah, nice one.
You can have that with my compliments, because they sent it to me to review, which I did, and you know, I'm at a loss with them, to be honest. So if you want to do a video on that, you can have this with my compliments. Sling me your address and an email, and I'll get it sent to you.
Thank you very much, Johnny. That's very generous of you. I appreciate it. You're a gentleman and a scholar, sir. Thank you.
No worries.
So, Steve, your pick.
Yeah, I'm going to go with this guy here. My Line 6 HX Stomp XL. Sorry, my earpiece is falling out. Yeah, it was tricky to kind of think of something that's most essential for every situation, because, well, you need a guitar, don't you, for most of these situations. But I just thought about, for gigging anyway, and even if I wasn't gigging, it sort of got a lot of features that I probably could use but don't. So, for example, it's an interface, but I've got an interface, so I don't really use it for that, but I could do if I was needing to. But I use this stuff for most of the YouTube videos as well, and it's my amp. It's multiple amps, but it's pretty much my amp for my live rig. It's my pedal board. So it's not just my pedal board. I don't know why I'm waiting to get into this, but I'm just going to show you kind of the way I've got it set up. So this is my mode switch, and then this is basically a pedal board. So each of these are toggling on and off a pedal. So it's, say it's a, I don't know, a Fender Twin or something is my amp. And then there's like a drive pedal. There's another drive. I've got a reverb on all the time, just a mild reverb, and I might have a bit more reverb, or a delay, or a phase, which you use for some songs. Maybe there's a chorus here. So that's a pedal board. And then if I'm doing another song and it needs sort of a more specialist effect, I'll just press this mode button, and then I'll go to another pedal board. And often what I'll have is I'll have the previous pedal board duplicated, but with maybe just one or two different pedals. So I've kind of got access to basically the same rig, but with a couple of different options. Or there's a couple of songs where maybe I'll have a very specific sound and I'll go for more of a Marshall tone, so I'll just go up to another pedal board. So what I'm saying is I've basically got like about sort of, like, I don't know how many you can have, but I'm using it as about sort of 4 pedal boards, and it's my amp rig as well. So this is it, chuck it in the gig bag. That's my live rig, that and a set of in-ears. Doesn't sound fantastic through the in-ears. I think that's probably the in-ears fault. When I'm using the in-ears, everything else in the band sounds amazing, like the keyboards, the vocals, drums, bass. It's just for some reason the guitar signal just doesn't sound that nice. But when I go out the front to check it, coming through the front house, sounds bang on. So yeah, love that bit of gear. And also, it's built like an absolute tank. So I had a little accident with it. On my gig bag, I've got this this kind of large pocket. I don't use a mono case. I've got like the sort of Harley Benton version of a mono case. And have you ever seen these sort of added bags you could put on the top? It's like a tick. So it's like up near the headstock end, and that's where this lives. and I didn't realise, but I had this in there and the zip was open. So the zip was open in there, and I went to pick up my gig bag from the floor and kind of weak it on. The pedal went like over my head, out like this, and dunted on the floor. And because it's so heavy, you heard the douche. I was like, oh no, I thought it's dead. All the gear was all packed up, so I had to wait till I got home and check it, and it's fine, no problems at all. So, and then on top of that, I'm not getting anything from line 6, by the way, but on top of that, with the sort of Helix ecosystem, they've been updating them for about 15 years or something now. You know, you're still getting updates for the old Helix, and I think the support that they're offering is pretty good, because I've got Fender Mustang amps as well that I absolutely love. I think they're kind of like underappreciated modeling amps, especially the sort of Gen 2 series. I really like them. But yeah, they stopped all their software support pretty much almost every time they bring out a new amp. They don't really care about you, whereas the Line 6 stuff, kudos to them for what they're doing. So that's probably my most essential piece of kit.
And I think that is, we've been at it an hour and a half now. If you're still watching the video when this goes out, by the way, thank you.
Well done.
Well done. You know, we'll have to come up with a kind of points loyalty kind of system or something. But yeah, I think I think we've covered everything there. Thank you, lads, for turning up and having
Thank you, mate.
a with my phone's pinging there. That's the missus.
Right.
Thank you for turning up and having a natter. It's been an absolute pleasure. We should do this kind of thing more often, I think. So there you have it. Those were our picks, and I just want to say a massive thank you once again to Jonny, Steve, and Lammy for participating in this Zoom call with me and helping me make this video. They've all got the footage as well of that call, so no doubt you'll be seeing some or all of what we've just been talking about on their channel at some point. Maybe you've already seen it, I don't know, but that's the video for today, folks. If you've made it this far, please accept my gratitude and thanks for sitting through what is essentially 4 middle-aged blokes talking about their equipment, and I hope you had as much fun watching the video as we had just having a natter. Thank you once again to everyone who took part, Jonny, Steve, the Lamb, and thank you for watching. And that is the video for today, folks. Oh, back in focus. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If that's the case, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell in case you haven't already done so, and why not drop me a like as well while you're at it. Don't forget the live stream every Friday, 5 PM UK time, where we drink beer and talk about stuff, music, guitars, etc, etc. It's a great way to kick off the weekend, and I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.